Welcome to this explainer, where we're going to dive deep into the absolute alchemy that turns everyday fruit into a complex glass of wine. Whether you're pouring a super crisp white or a deeply brooding red, the journey from the vineyard to your table is this incredible mashup of agriculture, ancient tradition, and seriously high-level chemistry. So let's unpack exactly how that whole process actually works.
Let's start by shattering a pretty massive misconception right out of the gate. Did you know that whether you're crushing a golden Chardonnay grape or a really dark purple Cabernet Sauvignon, the juice that comes out is almost entirely translucent? No way, right? But it's true. That vibrant, staining ruby color of your favorite red wine, it doesn't actually come from the juice itself. You basically start with a completely clear liquid just waiting to be transformed.
If you were to carefully dissect a grape, like physically cut it open, you'd see that the pulp inside is incredibly pale and clear. And this applies just as much to those dark red grapes as it does to the green ones. So, to understand where all the character, the vibrant color, and the structure of a wine actually comes from, we really have to look past the juice and examine the rest of the grape's anatomy. It's kind of like a giant puzzle.
When we break down that anatomy, a totally surprising ratio pops up. While about 80% of the grape is just that clear juice, the absolute magic, the real secret sauce, happens in the tiny 8% made up of the skins. Those skins are home to color pigments, known as anthocyanins, plus the structural compounds we call tannins. Simply put, if you want that beautiful color and that dry grip in your wine, you absolutely need those skins.
So here is the absolute crucial point. Before a single grape even enters a fermentation tank, the winemaker hits a massive fork in the road. It literally all comes down to skin contact. This one deliberate decision dictates the entire future of the batch. Do you separate the clear juice from the skins immediately, or do you let them mingle together? That choice right there is the fundamental difference between making a white wine and a red wine.
Let's take the white wine path first. Here, the goal is gentle extraction. The grapes are pressed right after harvest to immediately remove those skins and seeds, which minimizes any harsh tannin extraction. Then, that clear juice is cold settled and fermented at relatively cool temperatures, usually somewhere between 13 and 18 degrees Celsius. Keeping things cool like this slows down the yeast and beautifully preserves those delicate, floral, and fruity aromas that we all love in a great white wine.
But the red wine path? It runs in complete reverse. Instead of being gentle, the grapes are crushed and thrown directly into the tank. Skins, seeds, juice, the whole shebang. And instead of chilling the juice, red wine is fermented at much warmer temperatures, sometimes reaching up to 30 degrees Celsius. That heat is absolutely vital. Why? Because it actively encourages the extraction of all those robust, flavorful compounds hiding deep in the grape skins.
We call this shared bath of juice and skin maceration. It's literally the defining phase of red winemaking. See, as the yeast begins to create alcohol during fermentation, that very alcohol actually acts as a chemical solvent. It's actively pulling the rich red anthocyanin colors and those mouth-drying tannins directly out of the grape skins and dissolving them straight into the wine.
Chemically speaking, this is the core engine of winemaking. Microscopic yeast cells are basically feasting on the grape's natural glucose and fructose sugars, and in return for that feast, they give us ethanol, which, is the alcohol, along with heat and a massive amount of carbon dioxide gas. In fact, if you look into a red wine fermentation tank, it actually looks like a rolling boil because of all that gas bubbling furiously to the surface.
Now, all that rise in carbon dioxide causes a pretty fascinating logistical problem for the winemaker. The gas is so strong it actually lifts up to a third of the solid grape skin straight to the top of the tank, forming this dense, floating layer that we call the cap. If the winemaker just ignores this cap, the extraction stalls out completely because the skins aren't even touching the juice anymore. Plus, dangerous heat can build up underneath and actually kill off the yeast. So it requires constant, active management.
Winemakers usually tackle this dense cap using two main techniques. The first is a punch-down, or piage, where they use a specialized tool to literally muscle and push those floating skins back down into the liquid. The second method is a pump-over, or remontage. This is where they draw wine from the very bottom of the tank and shower it over the top of the cap. Both of these methods guarantee the juice keeps extracting those absolutely crucial colors and tannins from the skins. Okay, so once the yeast has eaten all the sugar, another really incredible biological shift often takes place. It's called malolactic fermentation, but surprisingly, it's driven by bacteria, not yeast. These bacteria consume the sharp, tart malic acid in the wine, which, to give you a reference, tastes a lot like tart green apples, and they convert it into lactic acid. That's the exact same soft acid you find in milk. This transformation is exactly what gives red wines and some whites like those buttery Chardonnays their incredibly smooth, creamy texture.
Eventually, the chaotic, bubbling activity of fermentation and maceration finally stops. The young wine needs a break. It's time for the maturation phase. The wine is typically transferred into traditional wooden oak barrels to rest. Down there, in the quiet dark of a cellar, the wine begins to slowly develop its ultimate depth, its stability, and its true character.
Think of the oak barrel as the winemaker's personal spice rack. As the wine sits in the wood, it's extracting some incredible chemical compounds. Depending on how heavily the inside of the barrel was toasted over an open fire, the wood imparts drastically different flavors into the liquid. You've got lactones giving us notes of vanilla and coconut, eugenol bringing in a spicy clove vibe, and guaiacol contributing that really rich, smoky, almost barbecue-like aroma.
But here's the thing. The barrel isn't just a flavor additive. It actually breathes. The porous wood allows a microscopic amount of oxygen to slowly seep into the wine over months or even years. This process, called microoxygenation, acts as a chemical catalyst. It basically forces the short, harsh tannin molecules to bind together into long, soft polymer chains. This is exactly why a well-aged wine feels so unbelievably smooth and velvety across your palate. And honestly, it's exactly this type of structural complexity and balance that wine critics are actively looking for when they evaluate bottles and award those highly coveted 95+ point scores.
Right, so up until now, we've laid out these fairly rigid scientific rules separating white and red wine. But what makes winemaking a true art form is that these rules are constantly and intentionally broken. Some of the most creative winemakers out there absolutely love to blur the lines to create entirely different styles of wine that really challenge our everyday expectations.
In reality, skin contact is actually a sliding dial, not just a simple on and off switch. For example, if you ferment white grapes with their skins, you get a grippy, heavily textured orange wine. Or if you gently press red grapes immediately, separating the skins before any color can bleed, you get a completely clear white wine called Blanc de Noir, which is super famous in Champagne. And if you leave red grapes on their skins for just a tiny window of a few hours, boom, you get the beautiful pink hues of a rosé.
Hopefully, this explainer has completely transformed how you look at winemaking. Every single bottle you open is literally a timeline of deliberate, deeply scientific choices, from managing a massive floating cap of skins to the precise toast level of a French oak barrel. So next time you take a sip, ask yourself exactly what microscopic decisions, chemical reactions, and broken rules are floating right there inside your glass.